2024 Hotspot Performance Review. If you recall, at the start of this year, we gave out 5 boom locations, which we predicted to grow this year. Well, in this video, we're going to have a review of them and see how we went. So if you want to know more, stick around. Guys, if you're new to the channel, my name's Julian. I'm the head of strategy here at Ripehouse, and here on our YouTube channel, we talk about property investing and all things related to finance and property. If you haven't already, make sure you smash that subscribe button so you don't miss out on videos like this. But in today's video, we're going to have a review of a video that we launched at the very start of this year. Actually, I think it might have been around December time in 2023. We released a video divulging 5 locations that we were interested in or performing well on the algorithm here at Ripehouse. And what we're going to do, I think it's all great to give out these locations, but to hold ourselves a little bit to the account, let's go back in and see how they've actually performed. Now, for full disclosure, these haven't been locations that really have been high on our purchasing radar. Some of them we haven't made any purchases at all. It still doesn't mean that they haven't been potentially good locations to go through. But I think let's just get into the numbers and see how we've gone throughout that one. So we're going to go into the first one, and the first one was Bundaberg in Queensland. So Bundaberg rum is what it's probably most popular for. But if we have a look here, so that one was scoring 95 to 97 on our R score. So that, if you're not familiar again with the Ripehouse algorithm, that means it's in the top 5 to top 3% in the country on the actual algorithm. Now there are quite a several amount of layers that go on top of just the algorithm's one thing. There's still manual due diligence that is performed by our research team, and 80% of locations in general will fail our manual research due diligence. So just the R score alone isn't always going to be enough. But if we actually have a look, so from the suburb as a whole, it's gone between the 15 to 20% range, and we'll go through some hot spotting for this location as well. There's also been strong rental uplift, so 7 to 11% rental uplift. But if we take a look at the heat mapping here, so we can see most of that, and there's always going to be data anomalies when you're breaking it down into a hotspot, because there can be maybe not a heap of volume transactions. You can sometimes get where there might be some really extreme high-end or low-end numbers, which can fluctuate the data a little bit. But if we see really strong green pretty much all throughout the LGA of Bundaberg, and funnily enough, the ones that are probably at the lowest in the growth score, public housing, but also they're heavily in flood zones, so it's potentially putting off investors getting into those spaces, and home buyers as well. But we can see really strong performance for the area of Bundaberg. We actually had made some purchases, but it wasn't a large volume of our purchases for the business. So I think that the actual percentage number was around about that 9% number. So we're not talking about a huge volume of purchases that were done in the Bundaberg area, but still really great. So that's I guess you could say that's a tick, because the national average this year, we're well below double digits on a national level. I think it's going to be somewhere in that 3 to 5% region. So here we're talking about kind of 5+ times that amount for the area of Bundaberg. So that's 1 out of 5. Let's get into the next one. And if anybody recalls, the next location was Ipswich. So another one in Queensland, but much closer to Brisbane. So in a metro Brisbane area. And that was scoring, Ipswich is quite a large area, and you had to be a bit careful if you're buying in Ipswich, because you've got public housing to navigate. No pun intended here, but a bit of a minefield, because you've got mining overlays to also keep in front of mind. There's also flood zones. There's also really large power lines, power transformers to be wary of as well. There's a few things you had to navigate, but that area has performed exceptionally well. So 20 to 25% growth, and we'll get into the hot spotting in a moment. And the rental uplift's also been strong. So rental uplift across the country is starting to slow down a little bit, but Ipswich was around that 4 to 9%. So we're 2 out of 5. But if we have a look here at the hot map, we're pretty much again seeing really strong deep green all across the LGA of Ipswich. Now, again, there's going to be some data anomalies all scattered around, and a lot of them are kind of development areas, or may not even be populated as well. But if we just take a look at the greater area of Ipswich, really strong. So again, we hadn't done a whole heap of volume of purchasing in the Ipswich area. When I went through the numbers in terms of the volume of percentage, it was about 3% or less of transactions. So if you purchased in there, it's again another tick. but then we're going to go into the next location, and a bit of a running theme here. It's another one in Queensland. So we gave out Logan, and that's kind of, you've gone from west of Brisbane and now we're going down to east maybe of Brisbane, you could say. Logan's kind of situated, it's a very, very big geographical area, but it's kind of situated in between Brisbane and Gold Coast, a little bit closer to Brisbane. But that was scoring 84 to 99%, so a bit of a variance just due to the geography of that, where it captures. But capital growth, again, has been fantastic, 20 to 25%, and again, we'll get into that hot mapping in just a moment. Rental growth has been strong as well, 6 to 12%. The volume of purchases, again, was quite low. I think it was less than 2% of purchases that we did as a business in that area as well. So yeah, we weren't divulging the locations too much exactly where we're buying. We don't want to create a bit of a frenzy and competition for ourselves, but we still wanted to give you, the viewers, I guess, some value out there if you were following along, and you've hopefully done pretty well. Now, again, if we break that down, the area itself has performed exceptionally well. You know, Logan has a bit of a reputation, the Logan Bogan. There is quite a bit of public housing in and around Logan, and a lot of Logan is actually under severe flood mapping. So you can still achieve good capital growth even with those flood overlays, but doesn't mean that you're not going to have heavy insurance premiums. Doesn't mean that you might not run into issues later on when you do have those flooding events, repairs, delays, loss of income, all those kind of things. But very, very strong and quite consistent through that corridor. That's a massive growth corridor for that Queensland region as that infill starts to happen, really connecting Brisbane and Gold Coast and kind of making it one really great, big, larger city. So what's that? That is 3 out of 5 so far. And we're actually finally getting out of Queensland now. We're gonna go all the way to the west, and we're getting into the city of Stirling in WA. So more towards the northwest of Perth, along the coast there. And that has performed, again, exceptionally well. That was scoring 88 to 96% on the R score. So right towards the top. The rental uplift, however, in WA has really started to slow down. So prior years, we were seeing kind of 10, 20% growth on the rental market side of things, and that's slowed down. But if you look at the growth numbers, that rental growth has translated into that capital growth. So most of that region, when we get into that hot spotting, is around that 22 to 30%, all deep green. And again, we're going to see some data anomalies here or there, and that is, again, is likely going to be maybe some premium price properties at the high end, low end, maybe fluctuating there as well, but very, very strong. No surprise either, because Perth has performed exceptionally well across the board, really, a lot of East Coast investor interest. But now we're 4 out of 5. Can we make it 5 from 5 going into the last location? And the last location was a bit different because we were always getting asked about Melbourne or Sydney. So we gave the Blacktown, city of Blacktown, out in New South Wales. And again, hasn't got the strongest reputation from I guess a gut feel from people around the grounds. But growth was slower than other parts of the country, and there's various reasons for that. Particularly Melbourne and Sydney, their prices fluctuate or tend to fluctuate because it's very heavily linked to servicing. So when interest rates are higher, your borrowing capacity is reduced, and because borrowing capacity is reduced, you've got less likely to be able to spend more money, so that can essentially take buyers out. So your more expensive markets, which is historically Melbourne and Sydney, are tied quite heavily to servicing. So, but if we have a look here, that was scoring 90 to 98% on the R score and still sitting quite strongly in general. The rental uplift was around 3 to 7%, but the growth was about 8 to 15%. So not at the same level of those other areas that we've purchased, but still strong numbers from a national level. We're talking double or triple versus the national average. And again, we didn't make any purchases in the area of Blacktown. There's a few reasons for that. Clients are coming to us, they may have certain price ranges or yield requirements. You know, that Blacktown area was around, I believe, at $800 to $1 million price point last year, looking at about 3% rental yields for most investors that we deal with. That doesn't really suit their price range. But what's funnily enough, we've got the mapping here for Blacktown. We can see, double-digit levels. You're always going to be happy with that, no matter what the year is, really. But there's a few others out in the market always talk about blue chip locations. Well, I call blue chip rubbish, because if we take a look at some of your bluer chip suburbs in Sydney, we're seeing negative growth, we're seeing single digit growth. So blue chip, outer areas, even if you have a look historically at the performance of Blacktown, it's actually been very strong in terms of 3, 5 and 10 year cycles. So you don't need to be investing in blue chip locations to see growth. But yeah, I think that was just a bit of an eye opener for the area of Blacktown. But I hope you found today's video informative. We've obviously got the video you can go back to and have a review of that. If you'd like to speak with myself or the team, make sure you click the link below or hit pause. There's going to be a QR code for you can just pull your phone out and you can book in a call with us. But again, make sure you're subscribing and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye for now.